I'd like to say how happy and honoured I am to be here today. I'm not going to take up your time. You've got some important things to do. We're closing in on 2 o'clock, except to say or to explain to you why I'm here. I ask myself the same question sometimes. I'm a member of the advisory panel. I was asked to be on the panel, the history panel. I may have met some of you a long time ago. I was involved in a consultation right across the South Islander community in 1995-96, paid for by the Attorney General of Arch at the time, so I went through all the communities a few times. I was involved in the curriculum development project that happened just after recognition in those heady days. I've done some work in Rockhampton, where I come from, with the local community there. Got myself heavily involved in the attempt to list what's known as the Kanaka Trail in Yeppoon, which turned into quite a controversy, which I've written about. So I've been involved with the community, and I've done that kind of work, but that's not why I was asked to join the panel. I'm on the panel because I'm a maritime historian. My main areas of interest are what they call sedentary fishing industries, tropical sedentary fishing industries, pearl shelling, bêche de mer, trochus, in the Western Pacific, in North Australia, and in Provinsi Maluku, Indonesia. So I'm interested in the South Sea Islanders who worked in those industries. They were the very sinews of those industries as well. South Sea Islanders, we mainly think about them in relationship to agriculture and the sugar industry and the early cotton industry, but they were absolutely intrinsic to the maritime trades along the coast, and especially, of course, in Torres Strait, in the pearling industry, and subsequently in the trochus industry and in bêche de mer. So I'm interested in those people. I'm also very interested in Torres Strait, and I do a lot of my research on Torres Strait. And so the organisers of this process invited me to be a member of the panel to give advice on those sorts of issues when it was needed. So I'm not here to certainly talk for Torres Strait Islanders. They are very capable of speaking for themselves. And as I've always discovered, so Australian South Sea Islanders, I'm glad I don't have to compete with some of you in that area. In fact, it amazes me you haven't got everything that you've always wanted already, given the talent on show here today. We'll just say that South Sea Islanders played made an incredible contribution to the development of the unique culture, the island custom that exists in Torres Strait today. I'm sure you all know that. They comprised almost the entire workforce of the early pearling industry in the first few years. Shortly after that began in the late 1860s, they were the missionaries who came to Torres Strait. The most important event in the Torres Strait calendar is the Coming of the Light on 1st of July, celebrates the London Missionary Society's arrival in Torres Strait. There were white missionaries there, but they didn't do the work of evangelisation. It was left to those initially Loyalty Islander teachers, as they were called, to do that work. Later they were followed by Rarotongans and Niueans and Samoans, but they carried that on for over 50 years, and they're responsible in a way. If you listen, or if you listen to Pastor Dave Passy from Torres Strait speak, and many others, they will say that the Torres Strait Islanders were prepared of the Lord. When they explain to themselves how quickly they were converted to Christianity, and it did really happen very quickly, they were prepared of the Lord. But you really do have to give a lot of credit to those early South Sea Islander missionaries who did all that early work. As Torres Strait went on, the proportion of South Sea Islanders in the maritime industry compared to the overall workforce went down. So you had about 500 working in Torres Strait in 1872. By the middle of the 1880s, it was probably down to 200. By the turn of the century, it was still about 200. When the expatriation happened, when people were taken out of the country in 1906, they looked for islanders to expatriate from Torres Strait. About 150 stayed behind. I don't really know how many left. And I guess that's the one thing I want to say and that I'll leave you with. We don't have the same kind of figures for the maritime industries that you have for the people who worked in the agricultural industries. They didn't come in under the 1868 or any of those other acts. They were signed on ships' articles or masters and servants contracts in the same way as other sailors. And so the figures for them are hard to determine. 150 officially were allowed to stay, but that's by 1906. By then there's a whole generation of islanders who have been living on the islands, married in to islander communities. And ever since they've played an incredible part in the life of Torres Strait. But it's a complicated story. A lot of those islanders aren't Melanesians, they're Polynesians, there's Samoans, there's a large body of Rarotongans. In 1900, when you had 200 Melanesians, that is Ni Vanuatu, people from the Solomons, still working in Torres Strait, there were 45 to 50 Rarotongans. Not Rarotongans, Rotumans. And then on top of that you had Samoans, and then you had other peoples as well. So it's a very complicated story. I'm here mainly to answer questions that people might have about any of that. Happy to do that in the break, and I'll leave you with that. Thank you.